It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We've got a great program for you, as always. And so, as always, we ask you to please hit that share button to keep us growing. Today, we're kicking things off with our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Alex, thanks for being with us today. We know you're in some tough, difficult circumstances, but we send our prayers to you and we welcome you aboard.
Thank you, Duke. It's great to be with you. Really appreciate it.
So we have an interesting story here today about the typical stuff, right? And we'll, over and over again. In order to integrate the New World Order in the public schools, in order to destroy whiteness, we have to discriminate, and discriminate hard against non-minority kids. And so take a look, let the video be our introduction to this.
Mike and Brandy Leininger say their 10-year-old daughter was confused and hurt by a classroom experiment in January at Leon Springs Elementary. Students were separated according to hair color, with one group receiving preferential treatment.
All of the dark-haired kids, the brown and black-haired kids, were treated as the privileged ones, and the blonde-haired and the red-haired kids were the ones treated not so nicely.
The Leiningers say teachers told students children in the fair-haired group were not as intelligent. That group was purposely given a game with pieces missing so they couldn't play. And they were made to clean up after the other children.
She was hurt. Her friends, and she named to the principal and to the district officials names of her friends that were crying.
Fifth graders were also shown a Spike Lee documentary called Four Little Girls about the 1963 bombing of an Alabama church. The film includes graphic autopsy photos of the girls' bodies. The teacher says she fast-forwarded past those parts, but the Leiningers say the children in their daughter's class did see the photos.
The things that she said that she skipped over, my daughter was able to describe to us to a T. So that night, our daughter was unable to go to sleep in her own room. She was scared.
Well, it's another example of the schools using harmful and degrading and traumatic propaganda and indoctrination to do what we know they are doing, trying to divide children by race, trying to divide children along this Marxist idea of the oppressor and the oppressed, trying to traumatize children, and of course trying to demonize America. If they were so interested in doing these realistic portrayals, why don't we do a Soviet gulag, right? Have some of the children starve and become cannibals, right? Why don't we do Aztec history, right, and have some of the children be in line for being sacrificed to the demon pagan gods, right? It's nothing to do with trying to teach segregation, and everything trying to do with promote Marxism and traumatize these little kids for subversive purposes. It's unfortunately what we've come to expect.
And I think I love the word that you use, traumatize, because this ties in exactly with what's going on in the sexualized classroom in the public schools. Why graphic sex? Why more and more shockingly outrageous pornography in the public schools? Well, to traumatize kids, right? Not to teach them about sex. It's the same thing with race now. What they're doing is they're seeking to leave deep scars on their children's psyche by showing them and introducing them to the most grim and shocking kind of ideological media they can, so that these kids never, ever forget the sexual or the political messages that these out-of-control teachers want to force upon them.
That's exactly right, Duke. And, we've said it many times on this program right here and in writing and in the special issues we did for the New American Magazine. The purpose of this hyper-racialism, this race-mongering in the classroom, has nothing to do with, studying history that happened 60, 70, 80 years ago, or even, over a century ago. It has everything to do with promoting this Marxist idea that we're going to divide up society, we're going to divide the children into two separate categories, turn them against each other, and then use that to foment discontent and revolution, and eventually to build a new system. Yeah, this is calculated.
And let's not reach back 60, 70 years, like you said, or to the Aztec Empire, or to the gulags of the Soviet Union. How about we show autopsy pictures of the tens of thousands of black people murdered in Chicago over the last 3 or 4 years? How about we go back to 9/11 and show what the victims looked like of the Twin Towers coming down. Why go back hundreds or 50s and 10s and decades when you can show them examples today? Of course, you know the answer to that sarcastic comment. It's because that stuff was perpetrated by non-whites. And so therefore we are not going to traumatize kids that way. It's only white violence on anybody else that we're concerned with.
Yeah, and you know, to continue on that, we could even show the violence of abortion, right? Why not show these little kids some pictures of aborted babies? You know, we know for a fact that Black communities are targeted by the abortion industry. Why not show some pictures of some Black babies that were chopped up, that had their brains sucked out in an abortion? Because it doesn't serve the agenda. They want these kids to believe that abortion is great. They want these kids to believe that America is evil, that people of European heritage are evil, because it serves the agenda, it serves the narrative. And frankly, you know, these teachers, it just goes to show you cannot trust them. They continually exhibit poor judgment. The school administration said, well, you know, some parents thought it was okay. It's grotesque, and it needs to stop.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
It's a dog-eat-dog world, or wag the dog world, or smoke and mirrors world. Whatever you want to claim it to be, we do not live in a healthy time and place, and it feels like we are all in a production.
And you want me to do what?
We want you to produce.
You want me to produce your war?
Not a war, it's a pageant. We need a theme, a song, some visuals. We need, you know, it's a pageant. It's like the Oscars, that's why we came to you.
I never won an Oscar.
You don't need an Oscar to see how produced our lives are. So let's just get the question of the week out there. What kind of a production are we living in? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you'd be so kind to share this video, then we can produce more clear-minded Americans, unlike the current president, who, again, didn't put together that he is president.
There's been a little change in the arrangement of who's on the stage because of the First Lady's husband contracting COVID. But look at this room and what you see. Pardon? That's right. She's fine. It's me. That's not together. The second lady, the first gentleman. How about that? Anyway.
Who's on first? What's on second? Because looking at this past week, we've had some interesting happenings and distractions from how bad we are at the moment, and the president is absent, both physically and mentally. The leader of the free world is sleeping, or that's what I presume he's been doing, because until just yesterday, where has he been the past week? Maybe he was prepping for World Sleep Day, because it does happen at the end of this week. Which does make sense. After getting all jacked up with whatever his handlers gave him to get him through the State of the Union, he probably crashed pretty hard. So as a nation, we are left with his deputy dog out there on his behalf. Which brings us to... Where in the world is Kama-Lama Lama Ding Dong? Ah yes, Ding Dong is out there doing her business. She traveled to Poland and spoke at a joint press conference in Warsaw with the Polish president regarding the Ukrainian refugee situation and whether the U.S. would take in an allocated amount. Of course, she did what she always does.
Okay. A friend in need is a friend indeed.
Okay, I can first. Okay, so this time. Szanowna pani redaktor.
Because of her insensitivities toward everyone and everything, the White House quickly tried to pivot away and then do what it always does, of course aided by the mainstream media defenders.
Change the story, change the lead. It's not a new concept. White people, we touch that, we'll talk more about it.
We can't afford a war.
We're not going to have a war. We're going to have the appearance of a war.
The diverted attention of most Americans made it even easier for members of Congress this week to bow down to their money lords and pass a $1.5 trillion omnibus spending bill that includes 12 spending bills and will fund the country all the way through September. It adds even more money to the discretionary spending for domestic agencies and the Defense Department, because numbers are just numbers when you read them on a piece of paper. For those of you not paying attention, this is the way a so-called budget is passed these days. And it is always released in the middle of the night, 1:30 a.m. to be exact, when Nancy Pelosi is up for her midnight ice cream binge. H.R. 2471 was released when everyone was sleeping and then promptly passed the House by a vote of 260 to 171, and then sailed on through the Senate, where they got on board with a 68 to 31 vote. Because it doesn't matter what party they belong, they will spend your money. It's totes cool that the bill was 2,741 pages long, and it was voted on and passed less than 2 days after being released. Because the elderly so-called representatives of you and I can read about 1,400 pages per day in between watching Matlock and Perry Mason. I know I can, but not really. Hey, the truth is, when you're talking about other people's hard-earned money, then you don't need to read any part of any bill. Just vote for all the money that doesn't actually exist. It's just a number on a page. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky displayed the only common sense and pushback on the insanity of adding to the national debt and to how bills should be passed. He again called for his Read the Bills resolution, which would make it so bills must actually have some time to be read. If enacted, this omnibus bill would have taken 137 days before a vote hits the floor. It's almost as if it makes sense.
We had a war, we forgot the hero. You can't have a war and not have a hero. It was like we sent him the Christmas card and we left out the, what do you call it? Fruitcake. There you go. All right, let's work.
Moving away from the hero, there's been plenty of the fruitcake this past week. It's been more weird than usual, which is saying a whole lot. Most notably was the distraction of the hero of all heroes for those on the far left who refuse to see reality. Let's talk about the sentencing in the Jussie Smollett case. There's some news about Jussie Smollett's assailant from the hate crime against him and his Subway sandwich in January of 2019. You remember the entire incident that helped rage Black Lives Matter and claims racism all over the country because the assailants who beat up Smollett were wearing MAGA hats and said, "This is MAGA country," at 3 a.m. during a blizzard in Chicago. Oh, and don't forget how this immediately sparked Joe and Kamala to show solidarity, because what happened to Jussie must never be tolerated. There should be no safe harbor for such hate. Jussie, after all, is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings. It was an attempted modern-day lynching, and we must confront this hate. Finally, that hate was confronted, and the assailant was sentenced to 150 days in jail. After more than 3 years, that assailant finally looked Jussie Smollett in the face by looking in the mirror.
It's all well and good, but when the fit hits the shan, somebody's going to have to stay after school. Who do you suppose that might be?
I don't know what you're talking about.
And so says Jussie. Immediately after his sentencing, Smollett vocalized his thoughts about having to go to jail for the felonies he committed.
No, I would just like to say to Your Honor that I am not suicidal. That's what I would like to say.
Okay.
I am not suicidal.
Okay.
I am not suicidal. I am innocent, and I am not suicidal. If I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years and the fears of the LGBTQ community. Your Honor, I respect you and I respect the jury, but I did not do this, and I am not suicidal. And if anything happens to me when I go in there, I did not do it to myself, and you must all know that. I respect you, Your Honor. I respect your decision. Jail time. I am not suicidal.
Okay.
Has anyone found a connection between Smollett and the Clintons? Asking for a friend. Since we're in Chicago, we might as well talk about the best mayor of all the cities in all the land, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. We know now that she also has the biggest male genitalia in all the land. Just ask her. My is bigger than yours. she allegedly said while berating city officials. This was after Lightfoot stopped a deal between the Chicago Park District and an Italian-American group, a deal which would have made it so a statue of Christopher Columbus would be exhibited during a parade. I can't make up this level of stupidity. A lawsuit was then filed against Lightfoot and Chicago for defamation after she also claimed she has the biggest Italian sausage in Chicago. And that reminds me that she allegedly said her male appendage was also bigger than all of the Italians. None of that is true, of course, but it is politics.
Please don't be disconsolate. This is politics at its finest. This is where the rubber meets the road. And I'm here to tell you, we've got a leader going out tonight to 95 million American homes. He's going to turn this thing around.
Disconsolate. Look it up. The movie Wag the Dog turns 25 years old this year, and yet its stupidity is not all that different from today. We get distracted so easily, and everything outside of our homes seems like a production. Remember to keep focus on the F's you give within your home, your faith, your family, and your friends. And if you would be so kind to share this production with the world, that'd make me the opposite of disconsolate. Until next time, let's go Brandon, and stay healthy, America.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
It's time for Reclaiming America with our counterculture mom, Tina Griffin. Tina, you're not just our favorite counterculture mom, you're our favorite mom.
Well, isn't that nice? Thank you so much for welcoming me. I'm trying to replace this corruption behind me, but my hair's not cooperating today. I need set design work, hair, makeup, all that, Dr. Duke.
Maybe you need to go get some advice from the Sex and the City girls.
Talk
about the Sex and the City remake, please.
HBO series And Just Like That, which is the Sex and the City revival series, has many of their original fans very disappointed by the extremely woke storylines, Dr. Duke. It's ridiculous that it literally makes everybody cringe. And we even have leftists that are commenting on social media saying, what in the world are these people doing? Hollywood's desperate, and they can't even write a decent storyline anymore. There's a lady who's saying all these things to her black professor, is played by actress Cynthia Nixon, who's a well-known left-wing political activist, LGBTQ advocate. Many who responded online about this clip said stuff like this. This is a blatant attack on white women trying to make them look dumb and racist. Another one said sickening, written by white haters. And the extreme left-wing New York Times even did a review on this series saying it was horrific, and they were very disappointed. So something's going wrong now if we have leftist people saying that a storyline, a TV show has gone way woke.
All right, so let me ask you this question. I didn't really watch the first one, Sex and the City, but to what the little bit that I had seen, it was all about promiscuity, sex outside of marriage. It was down on marriage. It was about basically slut behavior, pro-abortion. How could something as bad as that have gotten worse?
That's my question. I'm afraid to actually look at any episodes to figure it out. But it's bad if you've got people that would typically love Sex and the City now saying they would never watch this series.
Well, we certainly advise kids to stay away. The first one, is that your recommendation for kids and adults? Stay away, run 1,000,000 miles from this.
That's about it. And then use your time more wisely. In fact, invest in creating your own storylines. Take script writing classes, write books. Work on movie sets that are Christian-based and God-focused. There's so many good Christian movies coming out, or even documentaries that are exposing this junk that people can work on and use their time and money to help invest in and move forward in and get the word out.
So instead of watching this, you could instead watch the new documentary, Whose Children Are They? And tell us about this wonderful little piece of filmmaking.
Absolutely. Well, the hidden agenda in America's schools is being exposed in this awesome, groundbreaking documentary called Whose Children Are They? I know about half the people that were in this movie spoke alongside them over the last 2 decades. I know you could say the same thing. These are real people that really care for our kids. And the thing that I like about this documentary is the fact that they have the dirt, the evidence to back up what they're saying. It's not just hearsay. They have footage of school board meetings of actually what's going on behind the scenes that mainstream media is never going to cover. It's a persuasive film. It featuring brave teachers, empowered parents, frontline experts, who pull back the curtain and reveal what's really happening today in our country's public schools. And you and I have been talking about this now for the last year and a half. It's an awesome documentary that ties it all together. The subject of teachers' unions are addressed, and the need to remove them from our public schools is also very, very critical, and it's addressed in this movie. And for parents to support good teachers and help them stage a mass union exit. That is what this documentary is all about. I give it 2 thumbs up. All of us need to see it, and they need to run from the sex-saturated, STD-creating shows like the previous one we just talked about. This is where it's at. The people are on fire. They want the truth. They will get it from this documentary.
Let's take a look at the trailer.
Public education has gone off the rails.
Now it's about power and money and politics, and somehow the kids are getting lost in all of that.
It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you're a mom and a dad first.
Critical race theory is dividing our children in ways that are unacceptable.
You cannot use racism to eradicate racism.
Our teachers are bullied. Parents are shut out.
Less than 1/3 of America's school children are proficient in anything.
They're teaching these kids X-rated sex acts.
When we look at this radical agenda, the way our children are being exploited and the way parents are getting shut out, it comes down to one fundamental question. Whose children are they?
I know you agree with me, Tina. That is a must-see. I want you in the time that we have left to talk about where they can find more of your information, the audience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Duke. It's been an honor and a pleasure. By the way, we're coming up on a year of us working together. It's been the highlight of my last year working with you alongside, together fighting this battle. Everyone must see whosechildrenarethey.com. Go to the website. We also just did an alert in our app, Counterculture Mom app. Download it. It's free. For $5 more, you can get the premium content. I'd highly suggest it. You'll love it. We have a team of about 15, 20 people writing out alerts every single day to let you know what to run from and what you need to get your hands on. We just did an alert on this movie. You will love knowing what Hollywood is trying to push out there for our kids, because then you can actually protect your own children from this onslaught, indoctrination, and anti-God messaging. We also have it loaded, Dr. Duke, with positive entertainment options, video games, TV shows, series, films, free movies, all those codes and more are in the Counterculture Mom app. Raise counterculture warriors in their home. We're there to help you make that happen.
It's time for some real education. This week, we're showcasing our lecture series. For years, we've been producing these multi-part lectures designed to go deeper into topics that very few people ever really think much about. Today, we're taking a sneak peek at our lecture series entitled The Socialist Destruction of America. It is a fascinating 4-part story of how socialism undermined education in America. Please take a serious look at this. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Duke, and welcome to part 1 of our new lecture series, The Socialist Destruction of Education. This is going to be an interesting one, I think, because education plays a key role. It doesn't matter if you're trying to bring democracy to a country that doesn't have it, or to bring fascism to a country that does. The fact is that education is key. Getting control of the minds of young people is going to determine what happens in the future. People of our age, people who grew up after World War II, before the millennial generation, we still had stronger ties to a more patriotic America, because that's the way we were raised. We were raised with the Pledge of Allegiance. We were raised to be respectful of the flag. We were raised to recognize the importance of our constitutional republic. But over the last 20, 30 years, we've not been educating kids that way. In fact, we've been educating kids the opposite way. We have been teaching young children to despise our country, despise our heritage, to see our founding fathers as mere racists, to undermine free markets. This is a classic recipe for a very different America. And again, whether you're preaching radical fascism or you're preaching constitutional republic, it has to start with your children. If we don't grow up a generation of kids that admire and understand and are willing to buy into the complicated nature of freedom, we will lose our freedoms. And so what I want to do is talk about how socialism going back 150, 170 years, and its attitude towards education has been playing, as many people have pointed out, they're playing a long game. the socialists, right? That what has happened in America in the last 10 years along socialist lines would never have been imagined 50 years ago. And so we've reached a point where socialist education, because that's where they're winning. They're not converting 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds to socialism. People like Bernie Sanders really aren't that popular when you look at the national electorate. They're not that popular. And it was a shocking survey that came out a couple days ago where they were asking people if would they ever vote for a socialist, and about 4 out of 10 said absolutely not, but they were all Bernie supporters. It tells you something, right? That even though Bernie Sanders is perhaps the most open and vocal socialist in American public life right now, many people don't even know he's a socialist, particularly kids. Younger students and college students don't quite know what socialism means. So I want to take some time and explain the long game that socialists play. Let's go back to the founder here of socialism, Karl Marx. Education is free. Again, if you remove the picture of Marx and I said this was Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, I don't think you'd see a single difference between them. Education is free, Marx said. Freedom of education shall be enjoyed under the condition fixed by law. Well, then, is it really free, Karl? May I point this out? If you're arguing, Karl Marx, if you're arguing modern socialists, that education is free, it's a human right. Freedom of education shall be enjoyed, but it will only be enjoyed by under the conditions fixed by law and under the supreme control of state. Do you see the game Marxists play? Because your modern Democrat politicians are playing them too. Education is a human right. Everyone has a right to be educated. Everybody should have free education. Only it should be completely controlled by government. And I like his use of the word supreme here is right. This is the fantasy of all left-wing Democrats, progressives in America today, that it will be fixed by law education, which means Common Core, which means bigger than Common Core, the ESSA Act. It means that the federal government alone will dictate ultimately what happens and how it happens, and the supreme control of the state. Do you ever ask yourself why presidents like Obama, one of the first things Obama did when he became president was put forward a bill to get rid of charter schools in Washington, D.C., right? Even though many minority kids, even though many inner cities, Washington, D.C. has some of the worst public schools in the country, and that's saying something, first thing he did was squash that for families, particularly black families. The information is just invaluable. I do want to take a moment to thank our Patriot Club members for making this series possible. If you're not already a member, please consider joining our Patriot Club with just a one-time-a-year $99 gift. Tax-free, tax-deductible. You can support educational lectures like The Socialist Destruction of America. All 4 episodes of this series can be seen for free at FreedomProject.com and on our Freedom Project app. All right, before we wrap things up, I do want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members today. Great big Freedom Project shout out to Bruce from Callahan, Florida. Thank you so much, Bruce, for supporting us. And that is it for us today. I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, educated, my friends. Stay that way.